Go ahead. All right, we are recording. Aloha and welcome to the Relational Health Masterclass series. We are kicking it off today with a lovely deep dive into trust. So we're going to start with a little bit of the opening ritual of how I like to bring myself here and invite you to bring yourself here. So let's do that with a few breaths, shall we? Let's just inhale and let go. Inhale and be here. And inhale. Now what? Wonderful. I love that little anchor because it acknowledges where we've been. We get to ground in the present moment and we get to ask, now what? What's going to happen next? So what happens next is I love to light a candle just to invite that inner spark of wisdom and joy and love. So here we go, a little natural beeswax candle, a very simple opening gesture. And I always love to take a moment and let my head drop to my level of my heart. So if you're willing and able, I invite you to join me in this bow to know that you are bowing to your own heart. You are bowing to that space between of whatever energetic exchange can happen. And you're really honoring that the fact that you've carved out this time, whether you're watching this live or watching the recording, to be here, to recommit to your own greater well-being. So I love to inhale and exhale. Wonderful. Thank you. Hi. So I invite, okay, so let's begin with a few minutes of journaling. Do you have a writing utensil with you and a notebook? Okay, great. Let's go ahead and I typed in the chat some of the prompts and I'm going to pull them up. And if I hit enter, can you see them or are they gone? Are they there? No. Okay. So they might have not been there because, okay, the first one is always, as I'm sitting here, I'm experiencing, which is just a beautiful check-in for what's going on internally right now. So this can be any thoughts that are going on, any feelings, any bodily sensations. As I'm sitting here, I'm experiencing, and jot that down. This is not a quiz. It's not a right or wrong. It's just first thought, best thought. And then the next sentence stems, there's 4 total. So the second one is where I'd like to be at the end of this masterclass. So if there's a particular relationship you want to focus on, if there's a particular shift within yourself you want to experience, again, no right or wrong, first thought, best thought, where I'd like to be at the end of class. And then just to keep kind of this laser love check-in with yourself in these 4 writing prompts, I'm going to go ahead and offer up the third one, which is one thing I can do to get me there. So wherever that place is that you want to be, fully taking ownership of something you can do that's going to help you get there. More often than not, I have people share with me, I'm going to breathe. And I'm like, that's a great one. I'm going to breathe. And last but not least, probably one of the most important sentence stems you can ever ask yourself. One thing I appreciate is. And just really dropping into your heart, feeling that sense of gratitude, that warmth, that deep appreciation. First thought, best thought, what comes to mind? One thing. Sometimes I have people that want to write a whole list, and that's wonderful, but that's beyond the scope of what we're doing right now, just at first blush. And if you are willing to share, because this time can be very interactive, and you, my dear, are the only live participant today, so it's a very special interaction. Feel free to share, unmute yourself. If you don't want to, no pressure.
Well, as I'm sitting here, I'm experiencing calm because my work day is finished and the weekend is in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Where I'd like to be at the end of the class. That was a difficult one because I'm already calm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So perhaps learning that I'll have learned something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah.
One thing I can do to get me there is listening.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I appreciate is your knowledge.
Ah, thank you. Okay, so let me see if I'm getting you. What I'm hearing is you're already in a place of calm. So you don't really want to shift that too much, but in the course of this class, you'd like to learn something. So with that, I'm going to imagine you're feeling a sense of openness and willingness to listen, to learn, and you're appreciating my knowledge. Am I getting you?
Yeah,
Great.
that's it.
Is there more about any of that?
No, I think let's leave it there.
Okay, great. It's a beautiful first start to just kind of get a sense of what's going on. It really helps me. I always think of putting my fingers on the pulse of what's happening, even though I'm not a doctor and I don't know how to read pulses, even though this afternoon I'll have acupuncture and they'll read my pulses. And I'm like, what can you tell from that? I don't understand it. But I do know it's important during times of transition. So from your work day, which you're grateful is done, there's the weekend yawn in front of you, the big yawn of open space. I don't know if you have plans, but you're in a different time zone. It's what, 8 p.m. there, 9 p.m.? 9 p.m.
Yeah, 9:10.
Yeah, so thank you for showing up late. I appreciate that. And what I know is when we pay attention to the transitions, really tuning in, this is what I'm experiencing right now. This is my intention for moving forward. Here's something I can do to get me there. We are really stepping into that trust of ourselves, that power to own our experience, the willingness to look at the story we tell ourselves. Because when I get these writing prompts going, and I do them as a daily journal practice, and I invite you to do the same if you're interested. Sometimes I also fold in 2 more sentence stems that I'll just mention. One is where I'm from. So that can be where I'm from is kind of how I slept last night, what my workday was like, kind of the state that I'm arriving at this moment from. For some people, they pull it way back because they're being triggered by something in the past. So that can be something that's churning. And we just look at that, where I'm from. And the other is what matters most. So would you like to answer either of those? I don't know that you had a chance to write them down, but again, the first thought, best thought of where I'm from, what matters most.
Where I'm from, I finished my workday and I've done some resistance training and some yoga with Adrian. So I'm arriving in a calm state and ready to transition to learn more. And what matters most at the moment is I do have plans for the weekend, and in particular, I want to visit my mother, who is fading fast now, and it's getting a little bit difficult because her mind is going basically at the same rate as her body. So it's yeah, it's a little bit weird at the moment. My sister just had a very weird conversation with her yesterday, and so we're kind of like thinking of how we're going to do this to kind of ensure that my father also gets the possibility to speak to somebody else without my mother being present, because my mother might, not get the gist of the conversation.
Right, right.
So,
Mhm.
so I'll probably kind of like distract my mother while
Mhm.
my husband goes have a normal chat with with my father.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. So let me see if I'm getting you. What I'm hearing is where you're from is you really took care of yourself. You paid attention to the transition. You did your resistance training and then you did the yoga with Adrian. Did you happen to do today's, what was it on? It was on space. It was about 35 minutes. Is that the one you did today, or what day are you on in her series?
Well, I'm on. I'm a little bit behind, so I was on day 9,
Okay.
which was balance.
Balance. Beautiful, beautiful. I don't know if you printed out the calendar, but I have the calendar on
I
my refrigerator. And I
Yeah.
love it because it tells me how long the session's going to be. So this morning I was all geared up to be present for 35 minutes or whatever. So you're in for a treat. The one today was my favorite by far, this one on space. So you took care of yourself with training, strengthening, resistance training, yoga with Adrian. You're here now. And what matters most, what I heard you say is you do have plans for the weekend, and there's a growing concern. You've been concerned for a while now, given what I know about you, about the condition of your mother's health, particularly her physical health. And now you're really noticing a deterioration of her mental acuity, her mental well-being, really going at a rapid rate, just like her physical health. And you're concerned about that, rightfully so, naturally so. And also curious how to support your father so that he can have an interaction with someone else. So you're going over there this weekend, and sounds like you're going with your husband, and you will show up and be of service. Am I getting you? Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Is there more?
Well, I mean, otherwise, the weekend is shaping up as a very calm and quiet weekend. We want to take down the Christmas decorations because we're Catholics, and normally you could leave them up until the 2nd of February. But yeah, our tree is starting to get a little bit tired. So want to clear all that away, make some space for, the end of winter. Hopefully, at the moment, we're totally snowed under. So,
Wow.
we see. We also want to go and take some walks outside, perhaps in the snow, and yeah, just just have a break
Yeah.
because the next 2 weeks are going to be quite difficult at work. There's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be interesting as well. So it's not like it's not rewarding. It's rewarding work, but it's going to take a lot of time,
Mhm.
and we need a bit of a breather.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hearing the big both and, which I love. And I love to reflect that back to people when they're recognizing it, both being in the moment, being calm, resourcing yourself as best you can, and recognizing what's on the horizon. Not only do you have some rewarding and challenging work ahead of you, you have the further um, opportunity to bear witness to what's going on with your parents and how to show up for that. So I hear you, and you make sense to me, given what I know about you. And I imagine you're feeling that sense of energy, feeling energized, that you're committed to yourself with your own well-being around yoga and training and showing up for this class to learn. And also perhaps feeling a bit, I don't know if stretched is the right word, but pulled in terms of work and family, and wanting some time off. Is that how you might be feeling?
Yes, I think you've got it.
Okay,
You
great. So this is very interactive. If it feels like it's too much and you just want to listen, just give me a gesture, give me some feedback. We're co-creating this, and I'm happy to adjust accordingly. You know, I have a lot of wonderful tools in my quiver, a lot of different directions we can go. And I made some notes. I have some guide points here, but I really wanted to tune in what's on top, because I feel like that's what grabs our attention. And when we honor that, then we get the most out of whatever hour we're leaning into. So if you were to identify a relationship that wanted your best attention right now, what would you say that is? Is it the relationship with yourself, with your husband, with your mother, with your father, with work? What would you?
I think with the parents at the moment.
Yeah.
But let me just grab a scarf because it's freezing in here.
Okay, yes, take care of yourself. Good. Sending some warmth from Hawaii. It's actually a quite foggy day. You know, our volcano started to erupt again. So we get something called fog, that is the volcanic smog. And
yeah,
then we don't know. What's that?
That's not so nice to have smog. Yeah.
No, it's not. But
to think of Hawaii as a paradise, so it's like
yeah, it is a paradise, and wherever you go, there you are. There will always be challenges. I do believe that, and it's really about the story we tell ourselves and how we relate to those challenges. So much like what you're going through with your parents. So we will keep that in mind as a focus of our exploration of trust and relational health today. So where I would like to start is really looking at, how do we define trust? How do we know what trust feels like? How do we know what it sounds like? How do we know when we're experiencing trust? So in my deep dive exploration of trust, I realized that I often started with an external person, place, or thing to inform me of whether I was feeling that sense of trust or not. And in exploring this, I realized I was giving so much of my power away by having trust be contingent upon what other people, places, and things were doing or not doing. And so this journey of relational health has been one of reclaiming power. And as I help people reestablish trust, it starts with the foundation of trusting yourself to no longer abandon yourself. And given the fact that I have the good fortune of already knowing you, given what I know about what you've done leading into our time together today, I'm hearing that you trust yourself. There's some level of that foundation. Yes? Yeah, great. So when there's a level of trust, meaning we reclaim our power. It's no longer, I'm going to be okay and I'll feel trusting and I'll be trustworthy and I'll experience trust in my body when my husband follows through on his remodel project that he says, and my in-laws look at their vaccination appointments and let me know what's going on, and my kids do well in their debate tournament. No, it's not about that. It's about really paying attention to the story I tell myself about my life, the story I tell myself about my experiences, and inviting in what I love to call the moonshot and the magic. The moonshot is that declaration. Okay, this is the what, and this is the what by when. So I'm going to judge my son's debate tournament. I've already volunteered to do that this weekend. That's the what. The by when is, I just looked, I have some speech rounds that I can watch at my leisure sometime between now and 1 o'clock tomorrow. And then I have another round at 10:30 tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. I know the logistics, the details, the facts, the data, the objective reality. I know what those are, and I set my goals for myself accordingly. The follow through is how I establish that trust. Oh, I kept my word. I'm owning my day. I'm the master of my realm. I'm the CEO of my life. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. The magic is the surrendering to the supports that are around us, the support of the speech and debate organizer who I was just emailing with. Wait a minute, you have me on the schedule here and help me understand that. Boom. The support of my yoga practice, getting out on the beach for sunrise. Boom. The support of my higher power, my God, my understanding of that resource that is always available to me. When I know that's there, I can surrender into it. I can relax into it. I can invite in space for grace, space for receiving. So to me, trust embodied is the both and of saying what I will do by when, making that moonshot declaration, and then surrendering with grace and ease and flow and fun, and allowing those resources to support me. It just reminded me of a trust fall. Are you familiar with the trust fall? Do you know that term? Yeah, it's, the kids used to do it in the woods when they were doing wilderness training or whatever. It's like everybody holds their arms out and you have to stand there and you have to like literally make yourself fall backwards. And a lot of people couldn't do it. There was such a fear response within. So if we can use that example toward our life of, oh, there's so much fear, what happens physiologically is we start to hold ourselves tighter. And there's a constriction and there's a response which generates more stress in our bodies, which then makes us not so trusting, not so forgiving, not so loving, not so tender. Is all this making sense? Okay. Any questions or comments? Feel free to.
Not yet.
Okay, cool. So with this, I think as one becomes more trusting in oneself, there's a ripple effect and there's a greater trust of the environment, a trust of the others who live in that environment, a trust that, and this is a big one, trust that the universe is conspiring tirelessly in my favor. That's a phrase that I borrowed. Who said that? I should give credit where credit is due. And unfortunately, I can't remember who said that. I believe it was Wayne Dwyer who said that. The universe is conspiring tirelessly in my favor. That's an immediate green light towards trust. Because if I think the universe is against me, if I think God is against me, if I think my husband's against me, if I think the government's against me, if I think things are against me, I get really tight. And then I abandon myself and life is not as extraordinary as it could be. So how do we define trust? Trust in oneself first. Trust oneself to no longer abandon oneself. And what I'd like to do today is dive into what are the ways we abandon ourselves? What are the obstacles that get in the way of that deeper trust? And what are some ways we can really establish that more so that we are more resourced going into difficult situations? For example, a difficult situation of the passing of a loved one. As much prep work as we do, as much planning and figuring out the logistics and then figuring out the matters of the heart and getting support and going, it's still going to be an intense experience. But knowing that you can trust yourself to no longer abandon yourself can be a sense of reassurance, a sense of calm, to keep that calm going, to keep that sense of grace. Sound like a good idea? Yeah, good. So I would like for you to think for a moment about something you haven't forgiven. And perhaps if you can focus in on your relationship with your parents, if there's anything there that you haven't forgiven, either that you've done or that they've done or that circumstances have generated, any place where perhaps when you think about it, you feel a tightening, a constriction, a lack of forgiveness. Sometimes for me, I get to close my eyes. So I invite you to do the same if you need to go into it and really imagine what it is that hurts. This lack of forgiveness is probably not very pleasant, not very comfortable. I would imagine it may hurt in some way. So what does that feel like within you? Think of the experience. Think of if it was a particular event or it's a lifelong pattern. We are not judging. We are not shaming. We are not blaming. We are not criticizing. We are exploring. We are going within to dive deeper into what matters most. So, for some of us, when we feel that lack of forgiveness, that tightening, it can come across as a real anger response, as if when we feel that trigger, we go into a fight mode. So there could be some shaking, some burning, some explosive feeling. For some of us, it may be more of a numbing feeling, a dull, deadening sort of freeze mode. And then for some of us, it could be a flight response of, how do I get out of here? I don't want to go back to that memory. I don't want to think about it. I'm pissed that this is even coming up. I'd rather not go there. That can be a flight mode. Again, no right, no wrong. But as we think about it and imagine what that experience is, I want us to get more embodied with the feeling of it. So there's a notion that I'm a wholehearted believer, which is we've got to feel it to heal it. So whatever that experience is like in you, if it's a frozen feeling, you can freeze up. If it's a flight feeling, you can kind of jump out. If it's a boiling, more explosive burning feeling, whatever it is, sometimes I just boil it all together. I'm like, well, it's a little bit of this and this and this, and I'm just going to shake. So I invite you to just shake, just wildly shake. You're shaking it. You're stirring it up. You're courageous enough to feel it, to heal it. You're going into it. Shake, shake, shake. Regardless of the original event, how you felt about it, right here, right now, you're shaking. And then you're going to pause. Exhaling, feel the energy moving. I'm going to keep us anchored to the breath. So I invite in that ocean breath. So the back of the throat makes the Darth Vader noise, inhaling through the nose. Exhaling. Have a few deep breaths of the ocean breath. What this breath work does is it anchors us into the ability of knowing we can step into command central of our nervous system. Even when our brain might be hijacked by past events, our calm might be swept away momentarily. Let us use the image of the ocean throughout this. The breath, letting go, goes back to the ocean. And then the momentary event, the momentary experience, either of past, present, or future, it matters not. When it comes up, it's like a big wave. And we can learn to ride that wave. We can learn to go under it. And there are times where we can learn to not even go into the ocean right then because conditions just aren't so good for us. So with that breath work, I invite you to look over your left shoulder and bring your right hand up to your left shoulder and tap gently. This is another beautiful way to reset the nervous system, and then switch sides, left hand to right shoulder, looking over and coming back. Giving yourself the message, I am safe. It's okay. I am enough. It's okay to be me. It's okay to be. It's okay to forgive. So, with forgiveness comes a couple of key ideas. Forgiveness is forgiving. It is forgiving from that place of, oh, I wish I was going to have a different story about my life or about this event that bothers me so much. Forgiving. We're letting go of the idea of ever having a different past. Letting go of the idea that this experience or event that's difficult to forgive shouldn't have happened. We are forgiving time, space, grace, and opportunity to do some magic. Forgiveness is recognizing that this hurt, this thing that can't be forgiven up until now, has been a moment in time that does not define the entire relationship. So all of this is very conceptual. It's super helpful if it gets anchored into a real life experience. So are you able to hold one in your mind and heart? And is that possible?
Yeah, I can do that, but I'd prefer not to talk about it.
I figured, yeah, I got that sense. So what's that?
Especially because it's being recorded,
Yeah, gotcha.
a bit private.
Yeah. So this recording will be available to you. I'm just wanting to honor and respect your privacy. You don't need to talk about it, but when we can anchor it in, it really helps the concepts make sense. So much of the time, forgiveness is energy that gets frozen. Excuse me, lack of forgiveness is the energy that gets frozen. And it's like time stands still and we can't get beyond it. But when we can be willing to look at forgiveness as an essential step in trusting ourselves, it's like the experience can be incredibly liberating, freeing, lightening. It's like a load comes off. So trusting ourselves to no longer abandon ourselves, trusting that forgiveness can shift our perspective and open us up. Forgiveness does not mean whatever happened, it's okay that it happened, that you're okay and all that. It's not that flavor at all. It's a deeper spiritual practice of praying for this person for 40 days or writing it out, 49 times or whatever practice can help do the release. I tend to practice a lot of those. Writing for me is a way to access my heart, particularly if I do it by hand. It just really helps me tap into the knowing, the knowledge of my heart. My heart doesn't want to carry the resentments. My heart wants to drop the resentments. My heart wants to forgive everyone and everything, including myself. And I've heard that is one of the keys for longevity. It's one of the keys for growing old with grace. I've heard Dr. Mark Hyman, the functional medicine doc that I allow to influence my mind, he said, I want to die young as late as possible. So it's a way of staying young, of staying in that young spirit, but still living a long, lengthy quality of life. So thinking about that while you're bearing witness to what's going on in other people's lives can give you that perspective that can be really comforting and a reminder that you can come home to yourself. So the first thing with trust is forgiving yourself. So what does trust feel like? I described it as lighter, freer, unencumbered. I love to feel the energy that's available to me when I'm in a trusting place. I don't feel burdened or what is the word? bedraggled, that's not the word, buried in all of that. There's a real different sort of quality. So let's take a moment and look at what does it feel like when you're not forgiving, when you stay caught in that resentment. If you're anything like me, it's going to feel like a resentment. It's going to feel like self-aggression. It's going to feel like mine is a very fiery nature. So I once did this drawing, and I'm going to be stretchy and share this because I think it's a really funny drawing, but I wanted to bring in more of my creative, playful self to these master classes. So I was once asked, and I don't know if the words show up, to describe self-aggression. So what I did is, here I am holding a can of gasoline, pouring it onto a fire, basically putting myself into the fire with a fan there, fueling the flames, because fire needs oxygen. And my last thought is, how am I going to pay the electric bill? So it's like, and yeah, there's humor there. And I appreciate that you're smiling, because it's like, this is painful enough, right? But then I'm adding gasoline to it. And then I'm worried, like, how is it not going to keep going? Because how are we going to pay the electric? It's like this image, when I drew what self-aggression felt like, what resentment felt like, what an unforgiving heart felt like, it was very, very destructive. And I have come to believe, over these many moons of doing this work, of understanding on a holistic educational front here, that my thoughts influence how I feel in my body, how I feel in my body influences my thoughts and my behaviors, and that there's such a connection going on. We have our thinking mind, but we have our emotional brain in our gut, and we have a beautiful symphony within ourselves if we just pause and listen. So let's pause, breathe, and reset. That is one of the anchors that we can come back to over and over and over again. One of my favorite breaths with that, another piece of art, you're getting to see my goodies here today. It's the buzz breath. So here's the big buzz. The buzz breath. Have you done this one with me before? Okay, so buzz is really making that sound in the back of your mouth with your teeth kind of vibrating. And again, this is fancy neurochemical resetting here. You're going to inhale through the nose and exhale. Buzz. And you'll notice it naturally extends the exhale. And whenever we invite the exhale to be longer than the inhale, we're doing ourselves a favor. So let's do it 2 more times. Inhale through the nose and exhale. Buzz. Buzz. And then kind of shake it off, that shaking. So I certainly feel a difference in my body, because I had just shown that drawing and I remember where I was when I did that drawing. And the brain doesn't know if something happened in the past or it's happening now. We have a physiological response to it. I'm not there anymore, but when I go there, I'm there. But the good news is it's not as intense, it's not as frequent, and it doesn't happen as often. And the really good news is I have this quiver of tools that help me deal with myself in that moment. So the next thing after forgiveness is to come home to myself. I got to be willing to come back here. So there's a beautiful blessing by John O'Donohue in To Bless the Space Between Us. And I have it memorized, but I also want to make sure I get this one line right, because it is so exquisitely simple and well put. I always know what page it's on. It's on page 97 in this delicious book. To come home to yourself, may all that is unforgiven in you be released. May your fears yield their deepest tranquilities. May all that is unlived in you blossom into a future graced with love. To come home to yourself. So you'll notice I keep looking over here because my little trusty guide, instead of doing a PowerPoint for you today or a keynote, I'm bringing in my art. So here's an oldie but a goodie. And in the past, I never would have showed this. In the past, if I dared to create something, I would have ripped it up for fear that it's out there. In the past, I would be judging the heck out of myself, saying, that looks like a kindergartner. But the good news is, shift happens. I no longer am so critical of myself. That self-aggressive, fire-burning worrier is not there. So I can hold this up with great joy and say, it's foundational that we have trust. Are these letters showing up in a legible fashion? Okay, because when I look in the screen, it's backwards, but I know what it says. Trust is foundational. From that, we get that forgiveness, that forgiving, that sense of letting go of the idea that we'll ever have a different past, letting go of the idea that what happened with a particular person, place, or thing shouldn't have happened, wouldn't have happened if only you had done something different, or if only so-and-so had done this. And you can hear my voice. I can feel the tightening as we try to do that bargaining with life. Doesn't get us where we want to go. At least it doesn't for me. But when I declare my part in things, when I declare my moonshot of what, by when, and I invite in God to do for me what I cannot do for myself, when I remember that God is there all the time, when I remember that sense of being resourced, it's magical. It feels like surrender. It feels very sweet. Comes with trusting myself to no longer abandon myself, forgiving everybody for everything, including myself, coming home to myself. And as John O'Donohue invites us, may all that is unforgiven be released. May our fears yield their deepest tranquilities. Now, I don't totally know what tranquilities means, but I know what tranquil is. It's serene, it's peaceful. So there's something there that is more tender than the tightly bound knot of fear. And then to have a future blossom and be graced with love. Yes, yes, yes. I say yes to that. So we come home to ourselves. And then we come up to a few really key ideas. And I'll go ahead and show you the diagram here. We go to distress tolerance, sealing energy leaks, really paying attention to our heart's desire. And then once again, it all comes back to source. Comes back, this is a word I use for God, for higher power, for that magical quality of recognizing I can't do all this alone. I cannot do this gig called life alone. So I flew through those because I wanted to show the beautiful thing, which is trust, which I have found to be the first distinction of an extraordinary life. I got to start there. It builds, and it builds back to source. It starts with source, it builds back to source. So, okay, just peeking at the clock. We've got a lot of information here. I have pages and pages. What I want to do is have deliverable, digestible bit of information for you to absorb, to learn, to take with you. When we are willing to look at these concepts and really embody them by anchoring them in a personal experience. And again, you don't have to share them here in the Zoom room. If you want to write them down and send them to me later and get some feedback, I'm here for you. I'm going to have open office hours the first Friday of the month. We can set up a call. We can do something like that. It's important to have somebody on the journey with us so that it's not just, oh, I'm supposed to forgive. How do I do that? And go off into uncharted territory. So with that, I want to show you another image based on the story we tell ourselves. This is a line that I use all the time. to really ask myself, am I being trusting right now? Am I being forgiving right now? Am I willing to come home to myself? Listen to the story I'm telling myself. Listen, pay attention. That's where I get to put my focus. And then I get to experience what trust feels like, which for me feels like this. That's a picture of me long ago at the beach. I had this beautiful necklace. I don't know if you can see it. It's the mama holding her two kids. It was right after Toby was born, actually. He was not right after. He was a toddler. He was toddling around in Port Townsend. I can picture where we were when that was taken. And that feeling of freedom, when I can look at that and remember and have that euphoric recall. Because just like the brain, when it sees the image that I drew of self-aggression, doesn't know if it's happening now or happened then, the same with this. It's like I am immediately transported back. So I invite you to find an image, do a drawing or a coloring or a painting, some tangible visual object to remind yourself of what trusting yourself to no longer abandon yourself feels like. That's the deliverable. Another way you can do this, a creative option that I love dearly, is through writing. And the deliverable I wanted to offer up in this first masterclass is the idea of a mana enhancing agreement. Does this idea make sense, or shall I explain it more?
Yeah, I think mana enhancing agreement, you lost me there.
Yeah. Okay, good. So let me explain. How I understand this is anchored into a story. I'm a big storyteller. So a few years back, I had the great good fortune of traveling to New Zealand. And we actually went and stayed with a Maori and listened to their experience living close to the land, living with the ocean, living with the mountains, living with a sense of knowing where they were from in a very anchored, grounding, powerful way. And I came to understand this concept of mana, which is spiritual power. It's knowing who you are, knowing where you are from. My experience of you, I'm going to say this, you've already shared it in the call, so I don't feel like I'm breaking anything, is your identification as Catholic is a strength for you. You've been very clear about that. I can see how it feeds you. I can see how it anchors you, and it is a source for you. Am I getting you? Yeah. So that's mana, M-A-N-A. Some people spell it M-A-N-N-A. I think different cultures have different definitions for it, but the oceanic community, which New Zealand and Hawaii consider themselves siblings. It's very interesting. I was there with Maoris and they had face tattoos, and I'm Caucasian of Polish and Irish origin, and they're greeting me with the Honji. So we had our foreheads together and we're breathing and we're sharing that sacred moment. They're greeting me as an ancestor. And as I say that, I'm covered in chills because I'm like, what? I don't know. And that's where I get to suspend judgment and surrender into the mystery of life, of what brought us together. And talk about forgiveness. Right then and there, I got to forgive myself for all of the colonial, ancestral wounding that has happened, which I have carried around in some sort of self-aggressive way for a long time. And my journey of healing around that is to let go of the idea that there'll ever be a different past. So again, embodying that sense of forgiveness, opening myself up to greater information. Like my dreams, I started to dream about my grandfather on my father's side, whom I never met. He died before I was born, before I was on this earthly plane, and he was a naval commander in the US Navy, and he was in charge of the Pacific Theater. So he was perhaps one of the ones bombing some of our islands here in Hawaii as military practice, target practice. And I get to say that and feel a little bit of constriction that's still there, but a heck of a lot less than used to be. I do not need to judge him for what he did. One of the long-term resentments that I've held that I'm still healing is my resentment toward US military, toward US government, towards US practice. And right now that's a hot topic. There's a lot of civil unrest and broken social contracts. It's hard to trust in moments like this. But when I can put the oxygen mask on myself, take a deep breath, tend to what matters most within me, I am way more resourced to be forgiving towards my grandfather, towards the US, towards the colonists, towards the Maori, towards whatever, knowing that none of us is perfect, knowing that on some level there is a common denominator, and it's my intention to look for it. And my vision is to spread that aloha as best I can. So I hadn't planned on talking about that, but I hope my storytelling was helpful in terms of anchoring in how I've practiced forgiveness, how I've come to understand mana, which is spiritual power, knowing where we are from, knowing who we are, mana enhancing, bringing out, amplifying, making it better, making it an energetic exchange of excellence, one of my favorite phrases. Agreement. The Maori that I met and had the great good fortune of staying with and being part of their ohana, their family, they didn't do contracts. And this might be interesting for your work. I know you're in some high level, important interactions. I'm guessing there's some contracts. We often have contracts that we have to sign. Here we have contracts to get a new phone, and you have all that legalese, and you got to sign the contract. And in Maori terminology, the particular Evie that I was staying with, they believed in agreements. They believed in bringing the best of themselves to that energetic exchange. Again, these are my words. Instead of a contract, which they felt was binding, which could be lopsided, it could be power seeking, and it could be broken. Agreements had a more friendship-based tone to it. It had a more uplifting, enhancing, let's root in here and dig around and find the good in this situation and bring it forth. Given what you've heard about mana enhancing agreement, and given what you know about me, those of you who've known me for a while, this made a lot of sense that this would really resonate with me. This may resonate with you, it may not. Use it if it works, let go of it if it doesn't. Take what you can use and leave the rest. MEA is what I call these, mana enhancing agreements. And the deliverable that I was intending for you to leave today's class with is a mana enhancing agreement toward yourself. So we've covered a lot. We didn't get to all of the other steps here, but real briefly, I will just share why I put these on here. After we have trust, forgiveness, coming home to ourselves, we have this distress tolerance. We must get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I really invite you to take this on, take this in, and try it out, especially going into this weekend, especially going into the next 2 weeks. Distress tolerance. It doesn't mean armor yourself and prepare to be miserable. No, it's actually way different than that. I think of a meditation cushion that just gets larger and more comfortable and more supportive, so that it's almost like a cloud. I feel this energy that kind of uplifts me, of distress tolerance, knowing I'm going to be okay no matter what. And there are times I've had to tell myself that over and over again. I'm going to be okay no matter what. I'm going to be okay no matter what. I am okay. I am okay. So I'm giving you some hints of what these mana enhancing agreements might be for you. So distress tolerance is very important. We must get comfortable when things are not just so out there, but have a calm place to come within us. We seal the energy leaks. This is where we look at any addictive behaviors that aren't getting us where we want to go. I'm currently really looking at my relationship with sugar. Feels good in the moment, long-term consequence, even the next morning, not so much. Asking myself, what's my heart's desire? What do I want? So that's what I would leave you with today. Ask yourself, my heart's desire around this weekend is. How I will know it's a success is. One thing I can do to help get me there is. Like, give yourself these little sentence stems that as you speak them, as you write them out, as you embody them in some way or create a drawing for them or take a picture of them, they start to shift the story within. And with that, we can end with a sense of mana enhancing agreements. And the ones that I wrote down today. It's okay to be me. I am enough. I am safe. I trust myself to no longer abandon myself. It's okay to open my heart. So these are some agreements that I'm willing to step into. So if any of those resonate with you, feel free to borrow them. If you want to create some on your own and run them by me, feel free to do that. I would love to know, as we're wrapping up, if you're willing and able to share anything that jumped out to you that you're going to take with you into your weekend.
Yeah, that was a lot of information. I'm going to have to kind of like process it. I think forgiving, I mean, obviously also in, in my religion also forgiveness is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
I think what was really interesting is that a few weeks ago in Mass, basically the priest was saying that forgiving means that you can forgive somebody for something that he's done in the past,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't have to put yourself in the position that the kind of like is going to bring forward more things that need to be forgiven. So it's along the lines of it's okay to remove yourself from a situation where things are happening which are not okay.
Right.
And it is okay, even, for example, if you feel that the relationship cannot be sustained anymore.
Right.
It is okay to say, look, I can't take this anymore.
Yeah.
It's not you, it's me. But, and I can forgive you and I can forgive myself or whatever, but I'm not going to put myself in this position anymore where I feel the need to forgive myself or to forgive somebody else for what's happening here. And I think that's something which I think I'm still processing that one as well. That was only a few weeks ago. But I think it's very, it's important to, especially to other people, in the relationship with other people. I think I don't really have this self-aggressive streak that comes out in your painting, for example. This is not my problem. I have enough problems. This is not one of them. So it's more in the relationship with others, and there's a few things which have happened in my life which basically are unforgivable. And you can, for me, for always, the thing has always been that I can let myself be defined by this, or I can move on.
Right. And what are you choosing?
I've always decided to move on. I'm not 100% certain that for the worst thing that happened to me when I was a child, that I have forgiven that person. I don't think I have, and I'm not sure I'm ever going to have the capacity to forgive that.
Mhm, mhm,
But at least I don't have to think about it all the time,
mhm,
and
mhm.
I can avoid that person,
Yeah,
and I do avoid that person.
yeah, yeah.
And my biggest problem with my parents, in particular my mother, is that she did not protect me.
Mhm. Right, right. Yes.
So,
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing the very, very important piece, which I had written down in prepping for today. But given what I know about you, my experience of you is you are higher functioning, high level functioning, and not caught in any active abusive relationships. But oftentimes that's where we must start. And that's part of that ceiling energy leaks. It's where we look at people's addictive behaviors or abusive patterns. And if there's any physical, sexual, emotional, or verbal abuse, absolutely, we must stop that. That is part of the forgiveness process, in my humble opinion. And the um, the opportunity when we tell ourselves and tell the world, no, never, never going to forgive that. What I see is that's giving rent space in the mind, in the heart for something that you don't want in you anymore. So just try that out. If that's like, oh yeah, I don't have to think about it much and I'm just not going to see that person and I'm grateful I don't have to. But then when you see your mother, if there's any tinge of that, of she didn't protect me, disappointment, regret, sadness, frustration, the invitation is to feel the feels and to imagine what becomes available to you should you forgive. Because here's how it's worked for me, and this may or may not help you, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it. I've had a lot of things happen in my life that I didn't think I could ever forgive. And I held myself in the position of holding that resentment as if I were the one making all that decision, as if I were that other person's higher power, as if I were the one holding the power because I felt my power had been robbed from me in some way, my dignity, my virginity, my freedom, my peace of mind, my sanity. I've had a lot of things taken, and I've had a great opportunity to reclaim them. And the greatest way I invite more of that in is through dropping the resentment, because I've come to believe that that resentment is poison within myself. And I'm still giving that other person, place, or thing or experience power over me. I'm giving it free rental space, real estate, and I'm letting it toxify my heart. And I don't want to do that anymore. So there is a next level of work and there is a deeper dive that we all get to do. And we get to tiptoe up to it and say, oh, that's there. Nope, not ready yet. Okay. And that's totally okay. And there may come a time where you're like, I'm ready to go there. And I just want you to know I'm here for you. Should that time come up tomorrow? Should that time come up next month? Let me know what support looks like and invite your great capacity, your strong faith, your strong commitment to yourself, your lack of self aggression, your willingness to show up for your parents, your willingness to ask your husband for help. These are all tremendous strengths and resources. Gather those up, put them in your quiver, and know that you can do any of this, that you are doing it with whatever your desired outcome is. Grace, ease, flow, fun. Those are some of mine right now. So thank you for allowing me to bring in some creativity and a little bit of a different mix. I welcome your feedback. If it felt like it was too much information or not enough clarification or anything like that, I'd love to hear that. I'd love to know what worked. What would you want more of, as I'm fine tuning my offerings to best serve. My overarching goal is to be of maximum service to God and my fellows, and I want to do whatever I can to help that come to be. So thank you for that. Anything else for today?
no, thank you. It was very interesting. As I said, I need to process a little
Yeah.
bit. I need
Would it be
to,
yeah?
yeah,
Would it
to
be
think.
helpful to have a recording of it? Would you like a recording of it?
I don't think so. I've taken notes. I'm also
Okay.
a writing kind of person, and
Okay.
I'm more a kind of person for writing things down, and then, I suppose I'm a little bit analytical as well, so I kind of like analyze it afterwards.
Right.
So,
Right. Okay.
uh, yeah, I think, yeah, and I hate videos of myself anyway.
Oh, sweetie. So that might be a little whiff of self-aggression, even though you say you don't have any. It's like, oh no, you're beautiful. Why would you ever say such a thing? And your scarf just frames you in this regal way, and your smile, your smile is so rich and so inviting. I feel your warmth across these many, many miles. And someday I hope to have the good fortune of welcoming you here to the island in a
Yeah, I'd really love to see Hawaii at one point, but yeah, I think we're gonna have to wait some time here with the coronavirus and everything. It's one of those things that it's gonna take some time, but
yeah.
yeah.
We're in the big pause. So you're able to get across the border right now, okay?
Well, actually, one of the exceptions where you're allowed to cross the border is if someone's dying. And so my mother is getting close, so I'm allowed to cross the border for that.
Wow. Yes, we can be grateful for that and be grateful for this opportunity. And I wish you very safe travels. I wish you an opportunity to be with your mom and be with your dad in a very tender and powerful way. So,
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was weird to be the only person in the masterclass, though.
I know. Thanks for sticking with and showing up. I appreciate it. Until next time.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.